you tired of the daily hustle and bustle, the endless traffic just to get your little one to a good school? GMS Bingo offers a unique blend of academic excellence with a holistic child development in both nursery and primary. We provide a national curriculum with an international touch. Enroll your child today by visiting our campus along Trinity College Nabingo Road. GMS Bingo, where every child's potential is a reality. Because we care.
Welcome to Second Take with IDK with Isma Dakaba Chigongo. My name is Mebo Kebirunji. Glad you are watching us wherever it is. Actually, do let us know in the comment section, whether on YouTube or X or Twitter. Sorry, TikTok. TikTok is what I wanted. Yeah, do let us know where you are watching this from. Isma, Good to see you.
Alhamdulillah, glad to be here.
Oh yeah, you're fasting as we have an Eid coming up. So how have you been generally?
I've been good. Not much different. I've always argued that my life doesn't have highlights or lowlights. Yeah, life is a bit routine and ritualistic. Yeah,
and you like it that way?
Yeah, I do like it that way. Not much. More sports, more life. That's it.
Well, and sport is one of those things that just keeps on giving. So we have come to the end of the season for most clubs. We're talking mainly football here, but we've come to the end of the season, and it just seems there's still so much. So stay tuned as we start with the Arsenal parties. Did you attend any yesterday? Let me first tell you something about here in Uganda. The outgoing Minister of Agriculture got a
Animal
message.
Industry and Fisheries.
Got a phone call, I think yesterday morning. Someone wanted a contribution, and he was saying, instead of asking for a contribution to build a chicken house, you're asking me for a contribution to an Arsenal party. And I think it doesn't help that he doesn't support Arsenal. So where were you celebrating yesterday?
Frank Tumweba's, hey, if once I should ask him for a cow. Yeah, a calf that then I can. Then one day I'll tell you I started my farm with one cow because he has quite a number of them. Sunday's work. I was on desk till very late. Till quite late. Okay, not very late. Till after about 11 p.m. So Sunday is always work. But I was also able to keep track of what was happening in Uganda and beyond. Lots of parties, lots of processions. As Arsenal won their first league title in 22 years, I thought I loved a lot of the stuff that I saw that happened at Yes Center in Nsambya, where my day job at the Daily Monitor is not far away from Nsambya because I sit in Namuwongo. Then I see a lot of video. Nairobi. We've seen them protesting the Gen Z over the cost of living, the fuel prices, the Ruto must go slogan. Now they were out in the streets celebrating Arsenal winning the league. And then I'd also watch that video of Mikel Arteta giving credit to Uganda, where he spoke about the content he had seen coming out of Uganda on the Premier League channel. And he appreciated how much Uganda loves Arsenal. And he spoke about the unity that sport brings, how much he called it a ball, how much of an effect a ball has on very many people. So yeah, I really watched a lot of the parties, and from my position I could hear a bit of boda sporadically pass by, hooting, and I could imagine everyone else who is watching Second Take with IDK in their neighborhood must have had something. It's almost impossible that you haven't seen someone wearing a red jersey or blue or dirty white that has the word Fly Emirates. If you don't know, that's Arsenal.
Visit Rwanda is what my eyes always focuses on.
It's on the sleeve, yeah.
It's on the sleeve.
The first thing you'll see is what is on the front, on the stomach, yeah. I can imagine many of you have seen that. If you didn't know, that's Arsenal. Yeah, that's Arsenal celebrating. What a party. It also helps that maybe this is a social media era, that everyone is recording video or taking pictures or taking content, because we've never seen anything like this. We've never seen a title or a success of a club in Europe have this kind of effect globally, and more so in Uganda. And there are very few places where Arsenal is loved as much as Uganda. Yeah, I think Ugandans love the Arsenal.
Okay.
Until
so we are next to like the Londoners, the North Londoners. Though of course they are divided. You know, there's Tottenham on one side
and several other clubs, of course, the smaller ones. Yeah, yeah. There is a bond between Uganda and Arsenal.
Why? What does it come down to?
I love my context, and sometimes I make arguments or I make explanations, and sometimes I could get lost in them. I want to go back to when the Premier League became very regular on Ugandan television, around 1995 through TV Africa and Sanyo. At least by then, people could watch 1 or 2 games a weekend. Yeah. Then the number of games started increasing. Then in 1997, the games became regular. Yeah. We went from watching 1 or 2 games a weekend to watching a lot more games. I don't remember whether there were 10 a weekend at the time or there were less. But I don't remember that we were watching 10 games in a weekend. Others would only catch the highlights. So in that period, when the Premier League season first went live on Ugandan TV, and that's when SuperSport or DSTV were in their infancy in Uganda, and I think they were still trying to cut it where they were going to go with Mnet, with I remember there was that show by Oprah every evening that I used to watch. I think it used to come on around 6 p.m. on Mnet. Then the first one when the league was in Uganda, Arsenal won the league, 97-98, with Arsene Wenger. Then thereafter, after the 98 World Cup, so the numbers started going up, but they were minimal. After the 98 World Cup, Arsene Wenger, who was the coach, then goes and signs some of the players who had been part of the World Cup team, or some of the Arsenal players who people had watched the World Cup. And most of us joining Sport already start from the point of winning. So you find Sylvain Vilto, Thierry Henry, Robert Pires, and a few others join Arsenal around that time.
Zidane?
No, okay, Zidane did not join Arsenal, but I'm talking about those who joined Arsenal.
Oh, okay.
In the aftermath of that. Then Arsenal also added a player like Nwankwo Kanu. And those days, the Africa Cup of Nations was very, very popular, yeah, throughout many audiences. And there's many Ugandans I know from my generation, or slightly younger, who supported either Nigeria or Cameroon. They were the 2 most popular sides on the continent. And Arsenal then go and add Nwankwo Kanu, who has, I think, visited Uganda. Should be more than once now that he's been here. So then the affection grows. The club has French players who had won the World Cup. They had an African player who was very popular in Nwankwo Kanu. Then they've also won. In addition, they play some of the best football because they were very beautiful to watch in that era. So they go and recruit a lot of people, yeah, a lot of young fans who are getting interested in football. Then immediately after the 98 World Cup, United become dominant. They win a treble, they win the league again, and they defend the league. They go three in a row. And personally I sense that as human beings, we find it very easy to relate with teams that are struggling, with individuals or teams that are struggling. Now at the time, Arsenal was the one running United very close and missing out on the title. I think in that phase, Arsenal represented most of us Ugandans because United were too perfect to be real. I've always related that with watching the era of Roger Federer versus Rafael Nadal. That there is more people you'll find who supported Nadal than Federer because Federer was such a poet. His backhand was played with one hand. His forehand was crisp. Now, for most of the people in life, we are not excellent at what we do. There is a bit of a struggle. So you watch an excellent United who won the league in 2000 by anywhere above 17 points, if I remember correctly. That record has since been broken by Man City and Liverpool. But then they see a team that represented a bit of a struggle of human beings. And that's what Arsenal were. By then the Premier League was going. I've always told you the story, remember, that when I first moved to Chengera back in 2001, that's 25 years ago, we used to watch the Premier League on the balcony of a shop that used to have, this is, I think there used to be a pub called Ritex, yeah? So we used to watch on the balcony. There used to be 5 of us. One of the guys used to support United. My elder brother, who is who is an Arsenal fan, then Liverpool. The shop owner did not even care much about the football. So would go there on Saturday like at 2 or 3 p.m. when the Premier League is going to start and request him to move the TV to an angle where people on the balcony would watch. And it would be just 5 of us. So a few months later, that Ritex pub used to have a video hall. Yeah? So there were people who joined us. Then we got to 10, we got to 20, we got to 50, we got to 100. Then I went to Masaka to study. St. Anthony's College, where I spent a large part of 2 years. By the time I returned, there had been a second hall set up in 2003. Wow. Yeah, and this hall where we used to watch football for free now used to charge money. Yeah, I think 200 shillings at the time for people to watch. There had been a second hall, I think it's called Famous Club, yeah, in Chengera. Then during that holiday, one of my friends is called Moses. He supports Arsenal. He set up Modern Sports Cinema Chibanda. It was just called Modern. But during my time in Masaka, that time, there is a gentleman at a place called Saza in Masaka. And I used to be the one who knew how to operate a decoder. So I would go there, and this is the time when James Milner made his debut for, at the time, Leeds United, yeah, with that jersey that had inscription, what, strong ball. So I used to go there and help them read the time and help them write that this game will happen at this, because even the times in the decoder would come, I think they would be in GMT. Yeah,
but nowadays it's localized.
Localized. Yeah. And even a few years later, then they changed them to GMT, to CAT, Central African Time. So I used to go there and help him write that Arsenal versus West Ham, Saturday at 3:30 p.m. because the people there could not convert that. So by 2003, there were about 3 places. And I'm telling this story so that everyone can relate with their neighborhood. I can only speak for Chengera, where I lived at the time. There are only 3 places where the game was being shown consistently at the time. Then 2003-04 happens. Arsenal go unbeaten.
The Invincibles.
The Invincibles. They play beautiful football. The other things that I've mentioned all remain. They have a big French contingent, and then they win the league.
Mainly black.
And then many black players too, who are the same skin like you and, like me. You're not as dark as I am. Like Rasta and Jeremiah and myself and Brandon. So there are many people with my skin color. While United had Dwight York and Andy Cole, they were perhaps a drop in the ocean. But there was a phase when Arsenal would walk out with 6 or 7 black players.
Yeah.
So people could relate. Then they go unbeaten. The world went gaga. From then 2004, there is 2 stories. One I've told on this show in Uganda. My mom had no idea about football. Her interest in football always happens during the World Cup. So when the World Cup ends, she always asks, why are you people still watching football? The World Cup is done. Because she's known about the World Cup final. So in 2004, Ches Fabregas is at the club and starts playing. He had that game against Roy Keane against United in the Community Shield, another against Thomas Gravesen when he was wearing that shirt 15, and his jersey had Fabregas at the back. So my mom had gone around the Chengera neighborhood, and he had seen many people wearing Fabregas. So because she knew I'm one who went out, who who spend many hours out of home, more than all my siblings. I'm the most outgoing. So she asked me, how come I don't see people buy Fabregas? I see a lot of Shell and Total.
Oh my!
Yeah, I don't see Fabregas. So the moment it clicked, I burst out and laughed at her. Yeah, she couldn't.
Wow.
So then, seriously.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Fabregas. That's how she read it.
Wow.
So then I tell her the story. There's this club called Arsenal. There's a player called Fabregas.
It's a name.
She laughed at herself.
Oh my.
She still does up to this moment. Because now she knows a lot more about football. Because it's in her face and I do it. And my sisters do a bit of photography in sports. So she knows. Yeah, so she was Fabregas. So the second story, and this I haven't told. There's a friend of mine, Branto Kasingura. We go a long way. We've been friends for the past 17, 18 years. So Bran has a brother. I think he's called Godfrey. Yeah, he lives in London. Godfrey has a wife. The wife had just opened a shop in Chikubo back in 2004. And when I met her many years ago, when I first met her, I think 2008 or 9, she told me of a story. She had just come, people in business in Chikubo understand this kind of things. When you start a shop, normally you have an idea of what you want to sell. You want to sell women's dresses. Then when you get there, you're told that if you import boxers, men's boxers, you'll have a bigger profit margin. So she works in Chikubo. She has a bit of capital, not much. So she's told by a friend she doesn't know football to import and sell Arsenal jerseys, football jerseys. She told me the profit margin she made at the time in 2004 is what gave her the foundation for her to sustain her business.
Wow.
That's how she joined Arsenal. So from that, she became an Arsenal fan. She didn't know what she was selling. She just decided, I'm going to bring...
Putting money in the pocket.
Yeah, it's just putting money in the pocket. Then thereafter. So I tell these stories because I want people to understand the connection. Yeah. One, there is the winning. You mentioned the black players. I mentioned the unbeaten. I mentioned also the chronology of where we were 29, 30 years ago, watching the Premier League, and there were not many of us, and I don't know whether I was watching because I understood it as much as I do now, because I watched Michael Owen make his debut for Liverpool back in '97, and was the first teenager to hit double figures, and the record has only been matched by Junior Krupi of Bournemouth. I don't know when I watched those things back then, because I'd been going to the stadium to watch Majid Musisi, yeah. And then he had left for France. Then I'd gone back to watch all the others. Chamba Day, Fred Tamale, and all these are fantastic. Then eventually Andrew Mukasa and Hassan Mubiru and all the others. But there's something of a special bond. And maybe people there also have their own comments about what the connection for them was. But I've always felt that's for me where the connection.
That's where the connection was.
The connection starts.
So I'm sure there are so many good vibes, positive energy from all across the world towards the Arsenal players. Can they translate that, or can they ride on that come this Saturday, May 30th, in Bucharest? Budapest.
Yeah, Budapest.
Those two confuse me. Hungary and Romania. But this is Hungary. Who takes it?
PSG will start as favourites. They are champions. They are playing some of the best football. But one of the things that Arsenal can ride on is that would have been a much more difficult final had Arsenal gone into it having lost the league title. So there's a bit of confidence that comes with Arsenal winning the league. You go there with a lot more belief than they would have had had they not won. I think that's going to be very, very important for that game in Budapest, eventually for the Arsenal. Two, is that this game could be about Beauty and the Beast. Arsenal play a lot of the Beast stuff because they are probably the best defensive team in Europe. The other week, Luis Enrique was describing them as the best team off the ball, without the ball. Actually, he said without the ball, because they work so hard without the ball, and they are often very efficient. Perhaps it's befitting that they won the league. The final goal they scored this season was from a corner kick. Yeah. Noni Madueke, the one scored by Noni Madueke, perhaps exemplifies all the things they've done very well this season. So, I think they walk into that final in a much better situation because they won the league than they would have had they bottled it, like people have made them appear, or they've acted over the past few years where they've been in pole position and then eventually squandered the league title. The game eventually for me will come down to execution. I think you do not change much for final. Arsenal have got to stick to the things they've done very well all season. They've been solid defensively. They've got to do that extra shift. All the miles that Declan Rice has put in, all the good things we've said about Calafiori, all the shot saving or goal saving tackles that Gabriel has had to put in, all the hold-up play that we've seen Victor Gyökeres learn over the last month or two towards the end of the season have all got to come to the fore. So Arsenal have got to go into that and do all the things they do well, because we all know PSG do not change much. They are going to try and keep the ball with Vitinha and João Neves. They are going to try to create isolation situations for Kivicha, Kvaratskhelia, and then Dembele and Desli Doué. The three of them will keep switching positions at the front. I think for final, you don't change much. You stick to the things that have gone well all the season.
Is that something they can also do going into the next season? Keep their defense as it is.
I think for that they've got to start to tweak it. One of the things that we've all noticed with Arsenal this season is that they've not been bored. They've not been entertained. They've been very boring to watch. They are not the entertaining Arsenal that most of us knew more than 20-25 years ago. But it's also understandable when you're under the kind of pressure they've been under and under the pump they've been, with all the criticism of bottlers, they need to find a way to win and then get that monkey off their back. Now they can play with a lot more freedom next season than they have this season. Yeah, I think Mikel Arteta will be very much aware that now the players have been freed from the chains and the prison of not winning for a very long time, which had become one of the things you can use to mock Arsenal. Now that is gone. Now the freedom comes in. Now thereafter is that Arsenal have never gone back to back.
Yeah.
They've never won the league back to back ever since the Premier League changed from 1992. So that too would be a feather in Arteta's cap if he eventually can enable this Arsenal side to defend their title. And I think they'll start from a very good place. You have a good squad. You have several young players in that squad. Yeah, many of the players I think are anywhere below 28. So if you're able to keep them together, then you have another 2-3 years of them playing at the same level. So you make minor additions, but you cannot be very confident that you're going to another season with the same players without making additions.
Yeah.
You have to make additions to the squad, because the best time to strengthen in football is when you're winning.
Yeah,
you need to strengthen at that point in time. Of course, that does not apply to Liverpool. They won and then made additions, and then the coach went down south thereafter. So those are the things that I think that Arsenal maybe can do better from now on.
And what about the rivals? Do they stand a chance? We have seen Pep leaving. We talked briefly the other week about Maresca joining. Liverpool, like you've said, Chelsea are down there. But what about these newcomers? Well, not new, but they're not usually up there. Aston Villa, I think Sunderland. Can they make any threat? Of course, United. I haven't mentioned United. Finishing third, I think to me was very commendable.
Yeah, from where they won, where Michael Carrick picked the team and put it there. Very, very big improvement from where they were. I think Arsenal have a very good opportunity to go into a phase of dominance. And for me, dominance is not that they have to win the league every year for the next 5 years.
But at least
if
they win back to back.
If they go back to back, and if they can win maybe 3 titles in 5 years, that's a period of dominance.
Very hard.
Very hard to do. But they are the ones, I think, in a situation where everyone is chasing. And if there are things that can work for Arteta and Arsenal, is that all other teams are extremely very uncertain about their futures. Yes, United have handed Michael Carrick a contract for 2 years. That's also the period they've handed him is also shows that they are not very certain about where they'll be in 4 years. So he needs to get back the team to a competitive level, just to lay the foundation for them to be able to compete for the league title. And of course now they are going to have the distraction of Europe, of the Champions League. So they need to put some spaces on that team. And then we need also to start to see Carrick's ability to rotate, because the games are going to be coming thick and fast. 2 games every 3 days. This past season we've seen phases where United play once every 6 weeks. Yeah, and it has also become a thing that you use against United. So that's one. Then Man City, I think, and of all the teams that you mentioned, have the biggest period of uncertainty coming up. They have a very young squad. Most of the players are under 30. I mentioned that when they played the FA Cup. They had only 2 players who were above 30 in their starting team on that day of the FA Cup final. Now, okay, Bernardo Silva is gone and John Stones, but more important, Pep Guardiola. After 10 years, they face a threat. They face a threat or a fear of falling into the trap of where most teams, after the phase of a very successful manager, they struggle to replicate that. It's very easy to look back and see United under Ferguson and Arsenal under Arsene Wenger. But also, you can also relate to Vicente Del Bosque and his spell at Real Madrid. After he left, post-2002, they did not win the trophy that matters the most to them, the Champions League, for the next 12 years until 2014. So normally, it's very difficult to replace that kind of manager. So Enzo Maresca has a very huge task for me to get that team to a competitive level after you've had a coach who's not only successful but one of the greatest coaches we've seen in our era for the past 18 years. And he says he's going to take a break. I think that's a challenge for Man City. Then on the other side is also Liverpool. If the owners were listening to the fans, Ancelotti would be somewhere in the gallows this morning. But it seems like he's going to be in the job even next season. The team needs a rebrand. Some of the things Mohamed Salah said at his farewell, before his farewell, and was given quite a send-off. I thought Anfield, there were even people who cried in that crowd, and Salah cried too.
Yeah, it was emotional.
He was very emotional about it for the 9 years he's been at the club. And of course, he was being sent off with also Andy Robertson, who is also gone. But the task for me entirely falls squarely on Arne Slot. The club has declined at an alarming rate over the past 1 year. So how he puts all this together and perhaps gets the fans back on side, because that's one of the biggest challenges he has, because most fans seem they've moved on from Ancelotti and they want him gone. Now how he galvanizes that team and gets the fans supporting their club again, because Liverpool have some of the most loyal fans in the world.
Yeah.
For them to give up on a coach and their team is very, very hard on anyone. Then he's going to start the season with an issue, first with the strikers. Hugo Ekitike will be out injured, because of that torn Achilles tendon. So he will not play maybe until anywhere around March or April next season. And that does not help. Alexander Isak has had so many injuries this season, so maybe gets fit again. If he gets through 5 straight games, I think that will be a bonus for Slot. Florian Wirtz has to be better than he's been in his first season in England. Then you have to find a new leadership group. For me, that also is a challenge. He's still there. He has 1 year to run on his contract. He's now 34. And he's played all 38 games at 34. That's a huge plus for him. But he has to have a new leadership group around him, because when you've had Van Dijk and you've had Salah, And in the past you had Mane, you had Firmino, you had several leaders, and you had Robertson too. Now you have to create a new leadership group besides Van Dijk. Who else? Is it Sobosla? Is it McAllister, who has had a terrible season? How then do you galvanize all those things to come together for Arne Slot? That's also another challenge. Then there is Chelsea. A lot of talent. We haven't seen the best of that team. Then they have a new coach walking in Xabi Alonso. I think on day one he has to walk in with a goalkeeper. Then he can start to build the foundations of a team. But maybe the bonus for them is that having finished 10th this season is that they have no European football to worry about. They are not in any European game. So, and Xabi Alonso has time at the training ground to work out systems, to work out combinations, and work on all the things that would make the team better next season. So sometimes not playing in Europe is a bonus for a team like Chelsea. That's something they can use, I think, to be better next season. The other one you mentioned was Aston Villa.
Yeah.
I think that one we just have to first see what they'll do, because they need to put numbers, I think, on that squad. In the latter part of this one, when they started to rotate a bit, the team struggled. So Unai Emery and the people who manage the club have to add a bit of quality, because they have the Champions League to come if you are going to mount a title challenge. And I normally do not need 5 months to make a decision on where the teams will be. I think I'll be able to watch them within 5 games. Even the things they do in the transfer window, in terms of the players they're able to attract to that club, to Villa Park, will be very critical. If they go on and sign players like they signed in mid-season, where they brought in Douglas Luiz, who had been ditched by Juventus, then you know they are going nowhere. But they are able to attract some quality on that squad, then you start to sense they will be right there in the title conversation. But at this point in time, 8 to 9 days before the kickoff of the next Premier League season, it's entirely on Arsenal to go on and get better. If they can bring in a left winger, I think that position where Trossard and Martinelli have shared the minutes still needs reinforcement. I think they need to bring in another striker and get rid of Gabriel Jesus. They need to bring in some kind of support for Victor Gyökeres, and then they would do with another defensive-minded midfielder. Or, if not, then they are going to have to play Miles Lewis Skelly there. We all know he played there in the academy. And then he's been very good in the last month or so, playing that position after being moved from left back. And they are going to have cover in that left back position because they are Piero Hincapié, who now becomes a permanent. They can now negotiate with Bayer Leverkusen and sign him permanent to be cover for Calafiori. So all the signs point to Arsenal even getting better and winning the league again next season. But the Premier League, like we all know, is one of the toughest to win. There's always twists and turns. There's always a lot of unseen things that all of us cannot predict at this point. But like I've mentioned, all the teams know the tenets of success that they need to do if they are to be successful next season.
De Zerbi was brought to do a job and he diverted a disaster, really. So while there was celebration in, I guess lots of celebration in North London.
But more so in South London because they received the title in South London.
Oh yeah, Crystal Palace, Selhurst Park. But De Zerbi, I mean Tottenham, I remember looking at because you've always talked about how humongous, I think, if that's a proper word, how huge that stadium is, and it was actually going to be disastrous. Who would feel that in the Champions League? In the Championship. Championship, sorry.
Yeah. And West Ham will also have the same kind of struggle because the West Ham Stadium is not small. It hosted the athletics at the London 2012 Olympics, and it's been turned into a football stadium post-Olympics after the London City Council chose to give it to West Ham. Yet there had many other clubs that had applied for it.
You know, Prince William supports... oh, sorry. Yeah. I think he supports Villa. I thought West Ham. Yeah. Sorry.
So there had been... so they have also their own challenge because when a stadium is a 62,000 seater like the West Ham one is, if you're in the Championship, you're going maybe to attract... If you do 20,000 consistently, you've done very well. that's the kind of challenge that they face. But in the end, Tottenham get to stay in the league. They are the bigger club to, if you compare with West Ham. And they will feel it was a master stroke to hire Roberto Di Zerbi at the time when
You
they
think
did.
he did something? He did?
I think they were more organized. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. You could sense there was a bit of coaching. They were more organized defensively. Gave, for example, a player like João Palhinha, who scored the goal that kept them in the league against Everton, and had scored in one of their recent 5 games. He gave them a bit more freedom to move from a defensive position and get into the box. And I thought João Palhinha too was very important in that sense. But I also felt one of the stories that I've enjoyed in the days leading up to that game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is the one involving Cristiano Romero. You know, he's been out injured for now since early April, so he hasn't played football in anywhere close to 6 weeks. So he had been given permission by the club to travel to Argentina, where he comes from, and he comes from a neighborhood, a town called Belgrano. Belgrano have a football team, I think it's called RC Belgrano, which ordinarily is the team he supports. So he had been invited for what would be an FA Cup final by his club. What the competition I think is called the Apertura, and it was going to be played at the Belgrano Stadium. So Romero, who is also the captain of Tottenham, traveled to Argentina as he does his rehab and was supposed to watch the game. So reports came through in England that he wouldn't be available, he wouldn't be at the stadium as Tottenham were playing against Everton on a day that meant so much for the club. Then, like you know, English media, they go after him, that how can the captain be away on the most important day of the club, perhaps in 100 years. And Romero had to fly back from Argentina to be at the stadium. And actually, I saw videos when the team was warming up while he was injured, he was standing right there with them as they warmed up. Because there had even people, ex-Tottenham players, or call them legends, who had called for him to be sacked as club captain to start with. And if whatever happens, the club, who did I see? There's someone I saw on TV calling for him to be sold. One of those, because of his attitude. And I was thinking, okay, it meant this much. Okay, would have been uncouth. But the club had allowed him to go several weeks ago and stay home and do his rehab. So it was a very interesting story. In the end, Tottenham get to win their game by 1-0 against Everton, and then West Ham, despite winning 3-0, eventually will be playing in the Championship. The task, I think, for teams that get relegated is normally around who they are able to retain, because players want to play at the top level and some will walk away, and then they have
Even
to think about the wage bill. They are not certain about Nuno Espirito Santo.
He's a Premier League coach. I mean, he has moved around.
Yeah, he's been at Wolves, but he's been in the Championship before, because he's the coach that got Wolves promoted many years ago to the Premier League. I think it's one they can convince,
to stay.
And to stay at West Ham. And if Espirito Santo stays there, I think they have a very good chance in getting back the top tier
Even
within 2 years.
Their captain, the team
Jared
captain.
Bowen,
Yeah.
who scored on the final day of the season. There's been reports around him, but he's so British to imagine that he would walk away. Maybe if an offer comes from a club in the Champions League, and I would imagine he's been linked with United and Liverpool, but if he went there, he would be a squad player. And he's now at 29. He's not young anymore. So does he go and try to get West Ham back up? Is it doable in 1 year? Because that's normally the plan. Or does he think he has a chance to play in Europe at this stage, and then he decides not to go down with the club? They are very tough decisions. And currently, one of the things that I've also seen is that the club owners are not popular with the fans. I think David Sullivan is one they've accused of running down the club. I think his co-owner has since left, or has since passed on, David Gold, because I remember the time they came in, Gold and Sullivan, and they brought in a partner, I think he's a Czech billionaire, the other second owner, who is very reclusive. The fans do not know much about him, but all of them know a thing or two about David Sullivan and how the club has been run down over the past 5 or 6 years for them to get to the level of getting relegated. So there are some very tough decisions that have to be made when a club is relegated from the Premier League. And West Ham are now on that path where they have to make those decisions, and they have to be good for the club in the long term, because a 60,000 seater stadium belongs to the Premier League, not the Championship.
Okay, still on the English Premier League, Bruno Fernandes, you're not really a fan of him being voted as the player of the season. And the facts don't lie, apparently. Bruno Fernandes, the numbers are unprecedented. 132 goal scoring chances, 20 assists.
21.
Okay.
Got one on the final, the 21 assists. Okay.
And he was also voted Football of the Year by football journalists, your contemporaries.
Yeah, football writers, we define opinion. I've said repeatedly, I'd vote either Gabriel or Raya, because I think they made a very huge difference to where Arsenal ended up, especially the club that does not win every year.
Okay.
But I also understand the argument that is put forward. I do not think that Bruno Fernandes being voted Player of the Year is as criminal as some Arsenal fans have made it out to be. Yeah, because I've had arguments against him being, and I belong to that. But it's not like they've... some people make an argument and it sounds like they voted a West Ham player, like Somerville or Jared Bowen as Player of the Year. He's been the difference between United being in the bottom half of the league and being third. And for those who, and I know one of our colleagues, Nicholas Lumala, yeah, who even has an advert running with us for Lumala car accessories, you could go and support him. Send me a message saying that he asked me a question: have there been players who have been voted Player of the Year without winning the league? And I told him yes, and he didn't know that. Of course, there's been Luis Suarez, there's Mohamed Salah in 2018, there's been several others who have won this award without
winning the league. Yeah,
without winning the league. I think even Thierry Henry back in 2005, 4-5 season, I think was voted the best player thereabout. So it's not new. My thing is that I think, my argument will always be that I think Gabriel and Raya did more than Bruno did, and that's because theirs ended up in a title. But Bruno is not a case of an angel and Satan. Yeah, that this is satanic that he's been voted without winning. The numbers speak for themselves, like you've stated, and he's been arguably one of the best players in the league, let alone in the world, I think, for the past 2.5 years, regardless of where United have been. That's how good he's been for his club. And now these 2 awards down, football writers voted him, the Premier League voted him. Now you wait for fellow contemporaries, his fellow players, because they still the Professional Footballers Association. Their award comes out much later. And sometimes I always jokingly discuss the PFA as an award where players vote for their toughest opponent or their best player. Yeah, because what they do is that players are more likely to vote for a player as the best because they gave them a huge challenge when they faced them. And unlike us, footballers do not watch as much football as we do. Yeah, they are probably under no obligation to watch as much football like Ismail does, like some of the coaches do, like some of the other journalists across the world do. So sometimes their opinions about the game are basically about the strength that you can exhibit inside the 4 lines, not about what happens in the game globally in terms of tactics and all those things. So when that also comes out, maybe it will rubber stamp it. The players have also voted him. But in the end, an award for Bruno that is befitting perhaps of his talent, but I have a totally different opinion.
On that,
I would have voted someone else.
And that's what you get here on Second Take with IDK, different opinions. Well, something we can all agree on is the Uganda Cubs making it a second time to the under-17s, that is, to the World Cup. Congratulations to them. And what a final it was. It had penalties.
It was actually a playoff semi-final, not a final. but the manner in which
Okay,
it was played,
playoff, yes.
it was played in the
With
spirit
Ghana,
of a, yeah,
against Ghana.
it was played in the spirit of a final, but was a playoff game because remember, the format of this Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations is that the top 8 qualified directly for the World Cup. I know, for example, Tanzania and Algeria qualified. I watched a bit of their game yesterday. It was 3-3. I missed the penalty shootout in the end. But the top 8 go through. Then the teams that finish third in the groups go into a playoff. And those teams included Uganda and Ghana. And eventually, they played a memorable game. You could also describe it as a thriller. Ending 2-2. Uganda needing to come from down twice and then eventually equalize and then send it into a penalty shootout. Then there were 15 successive penalties scored before a Ghanaian player missed. The Ugandan goalkeeper Ashraf Luchamzi, saving the 16th penalty because eventually the score was 8-7.
Yeah.
And Larea Kingston,
who is Ghanaian,
the Ugandan coach, takes Uganda to the World Cup and then denies his country of birth a slot at the World Cup. This is going to be a second successive time that Uganda has got there. And one of the questions people have asked my colleague who is currently in India with the national team, the Cricket Cranes, Innocent Indala, sent me a message that as a country we have a challenge of doing things and repeating them when they are good. And I've always argued that in this country, most of the success we experience is a bit like popcorn in a jar, in a saucepan. When you're watching popcorn, you don't know where the next one is going to come from. That's how Uganda normally acts. Not only in sport, but in many things. You don't know the next time the road or the pothole in your neighborhood is going to be worked on. One day you come out and it's done, and you do not believe it most of the time. Now, Uganda has qualified for 2 World Cups in a row. That implies that there is something we are doing right as a country. First of all, through the schools football. There's players on that team, one we discussed heavily on the Luganda version of this show, Henry Muhoozi, who plays at Amos College. And they are missing him at Amos, but that did not stop Amos College from winning the schools championship last week. So the talent pool has become wider through the secondary school sports association. Then you have a juniors league, because many clubs now have junior programs that are running. We can talk about the impurities within, but at least they are running.
Yeah.
Then there's also the consistency of playing in these tournaments. Uganda, over the past 13 years, and people would want to say under Moses Magogo, does not miss an under 15, an under 17, an under 20 tournament. And that cannot be an accident. It's by design that Uganda is in those tournaments for Sekafa, first of all, to qualify, that these programs are active. And now we even have a database run by the FUFA development officer, Bashir Mutiaba, where all these players are entered into a database. And we're not in a situation where we were 20 plus years ago, that every time we had a tournament for under 17, under 20, then we are calling to find out, that's how it used to be. Then we gather the team. Now there's a database that tomorrow, if they say we need an under 15 tournament, we have an under 15 tournament to play. They just go to a computer and the names will be there. Then they see who is available and put them together and go and compete. So the players,
we're on the right track as a country.
Have been on the right track. What we struggle with is transition. The third point I wanted to make about how we've got here is that because of a number of coaches that the federation has trained, one of them being Brandon, even if he's not practicing, is that there is more coaches working with young players now than they were 20 years ago. You'll find that almost every school, every academy has a coach who is not just passionate about football, because before you'd go to any program where people are playing football, and there was someone who loves football like Ismail, and he's made players sweat and put cones and says go around the pitch 5 times and then come gabe batano kubatano, whatever the number, 8 on 8, and then play a game. Now there's people who are trained in coaching who are working with these players at an early age, and that is helping with their kind of development, so they are better players. If you look at some of the things, for example, the best player on that team, I think, throughout the tournament has been Henry Muhoozi. Yeah, the midfielder. He's been brilliant, but you almost sense his ability to receive and control the ball and manage the game is not something we've seen at this stage very often. So this team is not at this level by accident for me. Yeah, there are things that have been deliberate, that have been done, that have ensured that Uganda will be playing at a second successive World Cup. And I've always argued that we need to play at this tournament for at least 10 successive years perhaps before we even get maybe 2 or 3 players to filter through and get to the top level. Yes, we have James Bogere and Hamza Sengoba now in Denmark, but that's not the top level. The top level I think many of us think about is maybe the top 7 or 8 or 9 leagues in the world. And if they continue on that pathway, maybe a few more will get to that, will get through that sieve and filter through and get to the big leagues that we all aspire, we all hope that to get to see a Ugandan player one day.
So is that why Magogo did not hand over the trophy at Vipers?
Not exactly that. I think it was a curious story that the media must not have missed. Moses Magogo, because of the things that we all know that are going around with the investigation on his wife and the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Mong,
Magogo.
Most of us have not seen him in public for a very long time over the last few weeks. And I'm one of those who watches his program, Tutegera Mpira, almost every Thursday when I'm home. He's also missed the last 2 shows of Tutegera Mpira. He's not been on television, but he did show up on Friday. There was a women's under-17 World Cup qualifier between Uganda and Kenya at Kadiba, the FUFA Kadiba Stadium. He showed up for that game, which Uganda won by a goal, and they have a return leg in Nairobi on Friday this week. So he was there for that. And that almost meant that for someone we haven't seen for the past few weeks or the past 10 days or so, maybe he was back with the football, a sport that he has served as a player, as an administrator for a large part of his adult life. And we thought he would also be there for the Vipers crowning ceremony on Saturday, because normally the FUFA president is the one who has handed over the league trophy to Vipers. And as Vipers were receiving their trophy on Saturday at Chitene, and they had won the league in the previous week with that result against Maroons, then KCC had failed to beat URS, so they did not meet the result against Express. FUFA sent the second vice president, Dr. Aza Taibo, the lady to hand over the trophy. She happens to be someone, we haven't had lengthy conversations, but she's someone I think has a fairly good head on her shoulders. And she's also helped me with something very personal, when we're out of the country some time back. One day I'll tell the story when I've been able to overcome my fears, and I'll tell you what Dr. Aza Taibo did for me. So she was there, she was the one who handed over the trophy to Vipers, received by the club president, Lawrence Mulindwa, and the club captain, Milton Karisa, amid a lot of fanfare. There was quite a party at Chitende, and because of a person that Lawrence Mulindwa is, I think as a person he's always giving. He has that element of him giving. Everyone who came to Chitende that day, and I would love Arsenal to copy it, when they win the league next time with games to spare, everyone had a meal and a drink. Wow. Everyone who came to the stadium.
That's like 8,000 people or something?
Everyone had a box of pilau and water or soda. And maybe it's a difference in culture, because I'd wanted Astro to do that over their fans went to Crystal Palace. But maybe their culture is not food. In our culture, even having a minor meeting at midday, I expect a meal. And maybe Mulindwa understands our culture as much, being a Muganda. So everyone had a bit of that, and then thereafter there was a party for the players when everyone is gone. And then he had made a promise early in the season. Remember when they were top out at the end of the first round, he gave them 50 million shillings to share amongst the players. Then he said if they win the league, he'll add 250, and then that becomes 300 million shillings as prize money. So after that, they handed over the money to the players. I don't know what their bonus structure is, because I don't think all of them receive the same amount.
Same amount,
Yeah,
okay.
because others have played more games. I know the Cranes have that kind of bonus structure, the national team. The number of games you take part in a campaign, those who play 6 games receive a different amount of money from those who play 2 or 1. So the players have their 300 million shillings that, as they promised, for them winning the league, which is their 8th title. And they've been the dominant side, I think, ever since they won their first in 2009-10. Over the past 16 years, they've won half of the titles. If you just see the smaller sample space, they've won 4 of the last 6 titles in the league. And by winning 8, they've now overtaken Express. Express are on 7 titles. And now they can have a clear sight at KCC who are on 14 and Villa who are on 17. So it's been quite a bit of work that has gone in. And also one of the questions that I've been answering, someone who is not really into football and is into cricket, did ask me about what makes Vipers tick for they've won all these titles over the other clubs. And I told them one of the things, one is money. Because of the bags that Mulindwa has. And Mulindwa on football does not have a budget. Yeah, the other people within football who have a budget and say, for my club I'll spend 500 million. They're spending a lot. He does not have a budget. It's a bit on the impulse. When they do something, he can give them as much as he wants. He does not have a budget for it. 2, because of the money, he's able to attract the best players from around the league, including KCCA. He's able to get Alan Okello. He's able to get Usama Rafat from KCCA, which is very difficult for KCCA or any other club to get the best player from Vipers. That's another way to look at it. But also, there is the disorganization at all the other clubs in the league. Vipers are very stable. You never hear a story of delayed salaries, a player disrespecting the club. Those things are not there. Because there is one man who runs the club with, you could say, an iron fist. And sometimes I think at our level of development, we need more iron fists. Yeah, we need some bit of an iron fist. Because we tend to disrespect rules a lot more than other societies, because we've not been raised sometimes to respect the rules without, while we've been raised to respect the rules without questioning, we don't seem to understand the rules so often. So I think that has also helped. There's a lot of stability there. There are so many games, I think, over the season that Vipers can walk in and expect to win by just having 11 players on the pitch. The other teams are struggling with the meal, they're struggling with finance, they're struggling with so many things. So there's so many things that Vipers do right that other clubs do not, that in the end, they are going to end up as champions more often
than not.
Another
club that has a lot of money now, or is going to get a lot of money, $6 million US, I believe. Mamelodi Sundowns, after winning.
Yeah, the Champions League for the first time in 10 years. They won that in Morocco, the venue, the stadium where they played that game.
You've been there?
The Prince Moulay Abdallah. Yeah, that's where the Africa Cup of Nations final was.
Okay.
The game between Morocco and Senegal. And I've visited Morocco very often. The only country I've visited more, I think, is Egypt. But I've not been to Egypt in some time, so now I can relate with Morocco a lot more. So they were playing against ASFA, which is the Royal Armed Forces of Morocco. It's a club in the league. Because of our stage of development of Africa, the CAF Champions League final is played on a two-legged basis, home and away. The first leg was last week in Pretoria. Sundowns won that by a goal to nil. The second leg was in Rabat, and that one ended 1-1. So Sundowns win the title 2-1 after that equalizer from Mokoena. They had gone a goal down and they were on the back foot, and then a very sweet volley by Mokoena ensured that Dennis Onyango, who was on the bench for that, the former Uganda Cranes captain, is a champion of Africa again. Remember, he was on the team that won in 2016 and was also in the team that lost the final last year to Pyramids, but was sent off. During the celebration for that equalizer for Sundowns, the fans had been mocking the Sundowns players, and Onyango threw a bottle towards the crowd. And he was seen by video. So in the immediate, when the equalizer wasn't sent off, but at halftime, when they went to the dressing room, they looked for him, and the referee showed him red. So He got a medal but did not get a
Complete
chance.
the
And
game.
actually, towards the end of the game, I saw
Thank God they didn't lose.
They didn't lose, yeah. Because I was there thinking, okay, if you're Dennis Onyango and Rowan Williams gets injured, your second choice goalkeeper and you're supposed to come on, and you're not there, and they have to pull on the third choice. Actually, towards the end of the game, in added time, Rowan Williams came down and signaled to the coach, João Cardoso, to make a change. I don't know whether Rowan Williams knew that Onyango had, because of the amount of respect, and I've been to South Africa, the amount of respect Onyango has with the South African football public and fellow players, I think Rowan Williams must have thought they give Onyango this opportunity to come on and maybe be in goal for the final 5 minutes or so, as they were cruising to a title. He called for sub and Cardoso ignored him. Yeah, so he gets that second medal, but he not get a chance to play. And at 40-41,
It's okay.
it's okay.
And you're
it's
getting
okay.
money
He's
into
been,
your pocket.
Yeah, and also one of the things you started with, the 6 million, the agreement that the owner of the club, who is one of Africa's richest men, Patrice Motsepe, is that all the prize money that the players win, they will take 75% of it. So when you see $6 million, just know the players are sharing anywhere above $4.2 million.
Wow.
So binobirimu levels, eh? When you talk about Vipers and think 300 million nyingi, which is a lot of money, only about over $4.2 million from that money to share, and the rest goes into the club. The 1.8, which is the money they'll use to develop the players and because they attract some of the best players. But as they were doing that, there's also a minor, call it minor depending on where you sit, they lost the league title in South Africa. Because on Saturday, Orlando Pirates won their first league title in 14 years. They needed to win on the final day against Orbit College. And they won that to win the league by 1 point, as Sundowns were in Morocco trying to win their second Champions League title. So maybe success. Both teams go home happy, but a huge title. And shows how much of an investment Sundowns are put in to get back to this level. When they won in 2016, it seemed like they'll win another very soon. Now it's 10 years since they last won, and they played the final since. And they've been competing and rubbing shoulders with Al Ahly, with Wydad Casablanca, with all these giants across the continent. And we are talking about perhaps the only club that is showing the same in the southern hemisphere, because TP Mazembe now has declined significantly. So African football today is largely dominated by North Africa. Okay, It's been dominated by North Africa for a very long time, but Sundowns look like the only warrior
South of the Sahara.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Arsenal spending 22 years without winning. Has it been 27 years that the New York Knicks took a trophy home?
It's been 27 years since they played in a final in the NBA. They last played in a final in the NBA in 1999. And they've not won an NBA title since 1973. Yes, 1973. They had that long center with the hook shot. Yeah, going across the lane. I watched him in very bad video, 1970. That's how long it's taken. But as you watch, as we do 7 years, because they lead 3-0 against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and should they win Game 4 in Cleveland, they will be back in the final. They are playing some of their best basketball in a very long time. They've won 10 straight games in the postseason now, and all their starters, Mikel Bridges, Onobi, who is back from injury, Jalen Brunson, and all the others, are playing some of their best basketball. And in the past 2 games, all their starters have had double figures. And that is a very good bonus. They've shut out the Cavs, and they seem to have no answers at this point. So they look like they will be back in the finals after 27 years. But they'll even if they do not do it in Game 4 and do it in Game 5, which will be New York. And this is one of the most supported clubs in the world, or in America, you could say. And we've all seen their merchandise, all we've heard about New York. They'll have to do a bit of waiting on who they'll play from the Western Conference, because that series is tied to all. Victor Wembanyama had a 30-point piece to ensure that the San Antonio Spurs tied the series against the OKC, the champions. And it's now 2-2 ahead of Game 5. and it was a walloping. The margin was 103 to 82. One of the times where I don't read the scores, someone asked me why I don't read the scores, is that sometimes there are very many on very few. Yeah. When the margin is 25, I would only read it if it meant 1 or 2 possessions to win the game. But that series is now tied to all, and looks destined to go the entire 7 games, because game 5 is back in Oklahoma, and you would still think the champions will win that. And then game 6 is back in San Antonio, where San Antonio will be facing elimination. Then they win that. Then there is a game 7 in Oklahoma. Then thereafter we'll know who will play the Knicks. But the Knicks have not yet done it. But I'm very confident they will. They should be able to sort the series in 5 games maximum.
Okay. Still keeping it in North America, we had the Canadian Grand Prix. And George Russell fumed, he got fined. And he said apparently that the title for this year, this is the 4th one, yeah? It is for Kimi Raikkonen. I'm sorry.
Kimi Antonelli.
Kimi Antonelli.
You see how you're giving her your age by calling every Kimi in Formula 1 Raikkonen. Eh?
Oh, Lord.
I always want to protect you, but at this point I cannot. Yeah? How many people watching can relate with Kimi Raikkonen?
Oh, Lord.
We have 18, 22-year-old viewers at university, and I met a few of them at MOBS the other day. They don't know Kimi Raikkonen. That's
my apologies. Well, you should even maybe have said I just made an error, but not that he's a Formula 1 player. But yeah, this boy,
this teenager,
can anyone catch him?
4 in a row. He's won now 4 races in a row, but this is perhaps the most dramatic. I think Formula 1, because of a story that has been around it this season, the change of rules, it has had many stories that are not about the competitiveness on the track. Yeah. The war in the Middle East, and then the cancellation of Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. Then the change in the rules, which was heavily criticized by Max Verstappen, who threatened to walk away. Then the frustrations of Lewis Hamilton. I think those have made bigger news than some of the racing. Even when Kimi Antonelli became the first teen to win, to start on pole and win a race many weeks ago, I think in Japan at Suzuka. Now he's won 4 in a row, but this was the most dramatic, because they were going wheel by wheel between him and George Russell before George Russell's car failed. And I could almost sense the frustration for me from him was very valid. And one of the thing why he was fine is not because of the frustration, it's because he took off his head, the safety for his neck when the car stopped. I think that was on lap 24. When he walked out of the car, he took out that safety feature, and Formula 1 do not allow it. You're supposed to take it off when you're in the pit lane. So he took it off and threw it away, and by the time he was guided off a track, and Toto Wolff had to come down from his box to come and just console him and give him a hug. And George Russell was not very impressed with what the car had done to him. So the frustration was understandable, but this was been the most competitive. The racing, just not because the two Mercedes, but also the racing between Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton eventually got second, and then the Ferraris pursuing the Red Bull. I thought also Charles Leclerc did a very, very good job on trying to push Verstappen right till the end. So there was a lot of thrill in this Ghanaian Grand Prix than we've seen in so many of the races we've watched this season. So that's why I think it's been a bit of relatively bigger news than Formula 1 has had this season.
Okay, and now moving to Europe, Roland Garros. First of all,
you're the tennis addict here.
There's the prize money issue, but I think for me the biggest story from so far what we have seen regarding the French Open is Alcaraz missing out.
Yeah, but what we've known that for some time, because
but we thought it would be better.
Yeah, that injury was not going to heal, and while he's only he's 21.
Yeah.
The injury he suffered is not good for tennis. Okay, there's no injury that is good in sport, but wrists, elbows, knees in tennis, terrible. You can hurt anything else, but not those areas. Now that wrist injury, I remember there was an Argentine player, Juan Martin Del Potro, and the moment he started suffering those wrist injuries, the career went down. And here we are talking about a player who has the potential to be the greatest tennis player. If you go back to some of our episodes and you feed in one that has Alcaraz, you should be able to listen to what I think of him. because I think he has a potential to win more Grand Slams than Novak Djokovic has. That's how good this kid is, but he's missing.
But so, Djokovic is still there. He suffered a scare, but
yeah, in his first game. But this tournament is about what Yannick Sinner will do. Yannick is now world number 1. He's walked into Roland Garros having won the last 3 major clay court tournaments in Monte Carlo, in Rome, and in Madrid. The tournaments are preparing for the French Open. And also, he also became the first man since Novak Djokovic to win all the ATP 1000 Masters titles. And also remember, he had also won the Sunshine, the ones that are played, the one in Indiana Wells and Miami.
Yeah.
So he's firing on all cylinders, and he hasn't won the French Open. So the motivation for Yannick Sinner must be way up there, because the Italian has won the Australian, he's won Wimbledon, he's won the US Open, but of the 4 majors, the one he hasn't won is this one, Roland Garros. So he's going to be the man to beat. It's about what Yannick Sinner does or doesn't do over the next week or so. But like you mentioned, also the discussion has been largely around the prize money, because players are taking home 15% of the revenue generated by Roland Garros, which Roland Garros last year generated about £427 million in television and advertising. And the players actually, when I saw 15%, I didn't even work out the percent, but when I read the story on the BBC, the players actually only want a 1% increase to be given 16%. And the win of Roland Garros is going to take home as much as 2.5 million. And then the ones at Wimbledon will take home about 2.8 million, which is 300,000 more. So I was thinking, okay, 16%, can't you just give them this? And I saw before the tournament started over the weekend, there was a protest. Players would come to press conferences and spend exactly 15 minutes and leave. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because that's as much they are going to do in relative to the prize money, just to reiterate the message that 15% is not enough. The media want longer interviews than 15 minutes, but we are giving them 15 to relate with the 15%. And I saw they want to be given 16%, and they want a bit more of an input in organizing the schedule for all these tournaments. I've seen it with the WTA, that's the Women's Tennis Association, where players sit, and the ATP, the Association of Tennis Professionals for the men. And I don't think the people who run these tournaments are willing to give players a lot more say, because they are taking on a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of money to make. You have to play in China, in Japan, in Doha, in Riyadh, in Miami, in Indiana, in all these places, because the money generated throughout the year. On average, a tennis player at the lower level, forget the Djokovic who have the resources and can choose where they play, the Sabalenkas, and some of their fight, and I was seeing Sabalenka saying, Arina Sabalenka, who is favored to win the French Open, and you could throw in Iga Swiatek in that conversation and a few others. She spoke about their fight is not about them, it's about the players at the bottom.
Yeah.
Because I talk about the players at the bottom have to play anywhere close to 35 tournaments a year
to make it
worthwhile. So it's very expensive, and while they are able to generate money from the prize money, is that they are going to spend and remain with so little. And of course,
because you have a team, you have to pay.
And the fight for the women, of course, for them is even much bigger. There is protecting their ranking when they go out to have children, when they take a maternity break from the sport. Of course, some of that has been sorted now. You have a protected ranking. Naomi Osaka has benefited from that, and a few players now. But that wasn't the case when, for example, Kim Clijsters went away. Yeah? So some of these things, perhaps, for sport have come over a period of time, and these conversations are very good to have. That's why many times when I've seen these players speak, especially Sabalenka, she's already said what they want is to have a consistent conversation with the people who manage the game of tennis. They are not choosing to boycott, because there have been reports of players boycotting, especially the French players boycotting the Roland Garros. And Sabalenka said, we're not at the stage where I should boycott. We need to continue having this conversation, and things will change one at a time, and the next players perhaps will benefit more than we have. And I like that part of argument more than the protest.
Okay, and finally, as we end, Isma, why should we take note of Cobbs being kicked out? We're talking rugby now.
Because if you enjoy your social media, Impis have been throwing a ruckus. They did during the regular season, and perhaps we didn't take note. But now they knocked out Cobs from the Rugby Championship in the quarterfinals. So remember, the quarterfinals have been playing 2 games. Cobs had won the first, I think, marginally at the Graveyard. So they played the second leg at Kampala Rugby Club over the weekend. And Impis won that and did not give Cobs even a sniff. Yeah, it wasn't a contest. It's one of those games where you say very many on very few. Yeah, and I want to just put the exact score. Yeah, to that. This is when I need to pull out my phone and just ensure that I read the exact score and just confirm that Impis. And now they are taking all their arrogance, like we know it on social media. Yes, because they won the second leg 30-10, a 20-point difference to advance with a 9-point margin over Cobs. So Impis are into the quarterfinals, as well as Pirates. Easy fixture, they beat the Waluka Barbarians 28-0. Then the other 2 fixtures I thought were the more entertaining, not even Cobs. Heathens had to work so hard to overturn a first leg deficit on Victoria Sharks. Eventually won the second leg 30-10 to win that by just the 2 points. They had been trailing after the first leg by as many as 18 or 17 points, and then they won by winning by 20 points. They won. The aggregate score was 35-33. Then there was even a more entertaining one which ended in a draw between the Buffaloes and the Mongas at Chadondo, ending 21-all, but in the end the Buffaloes winning 42-33 for them to advance to the semi-finals. So we move into the next stage. So this is Pirates versus Heathens, and then Impis versus Buffaloes in the other semi-final. You would never have predicted that. But before that happens, the semi-finals will come in the other week. This week, Pirates will be traveling to Nairobi for the other Enterprise Cup, where they go to the final. Yes. They will be playing against Kabra Sugar. I've seen fans mobilizing to be there with them, and they are paying, I think, 300,000. If you go to social media, you'll get onto the bus and be in Nairobi. You'll leave Uganda on a Friday night, get to Nairobi by 4 a.m. on Saturday morning. Take a shower if you need it. If you don't, it's okay. Have a bit of rest, go to the stadium, watch the game, and then travel back on Sunday night and get to Kampala on Sunday morning. There, I know you'll need a shower. And then rest, and then you'll be able to get back on Monday. So hopefully, good luck. The best of luck to Pirates as they go to beat Kenya for us
in the Enterprise Cup.
Yeah.
So that's all we had for you here on Second Take with Isma Dakawa-Chigongo. Remember to share, to like, do give us your comments, and we shall read some of them or even respond. I've seen Isma every once in a while going to respond to some comments on YouTube. That is, I'd seen you do that. So thank you so much. Do take care of yourselves, and we shall see you again.
Are you tired of the daily hustle and bustle, the endless traffic just to get your little one to a good school? GMS Nabingo offers a unique blend of academic excellence with a holistic child development in both nursery and primary. We provide a national curriculum with an international touch. Enroll your child today by visiting our campus along Trinity College Nabingo Road. GMS Nabingo, where every child's potential is a reality. Because we care.